Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest, and another exciting story. Where are we going today? Let's talk about entrepreneurship and this beautiful lady's journey into creating an award-winning brand out of no experience. And I know you're probably going, Andre, what do you mean? Let's talk about cooking and creating a charcuterie board. I believe that's how you say the pronunciation. But no culinary art skills at all. And like we all have, coming out of something. And we ask ourselves all the time, how do we get to the levels of I can't to the levels of I can in our lives? I know we all have asked ourselves this question, and some of us have somewhat figured it out. Well, she has definitely done that. I'd like to welcome to the show, Miss Erika Lebo to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
What's up, Erika? Nice last name. Before we even get started, Lebo. What is that? Is that French? Is that French?
It's a little bit of everything. I couldn't even tell you where it comes from.
It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Before we get started with your bio, and I read it, it's definitely heart-wrenching, but at the same time, it clearly shows the never say die the beast attitude. Tell the viewers a little bit about who Erika Lebo is before we get into your show.
Yeah, I would say that I am a powerhouse, and that's something I never thought that I would say. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I didn't have the easiest upbringing from before conception. And I got through a lot of struggles, and I always just tried really hard to find my way, figure out who I am. Do I belong? Where do I belong? And I just stumbled through life, and it led me down this amazing path to where I am today at a level of national speaking and entrepreneurship.
Now, I looked at your resume. Let's start there. You grew up and was raised in Pennsylvania, but there was a moment in your life where you didn't feel that existence was even part of your fabrication. You dealt with some rape, but more importantly, I want to deal with this part right here, because that's all of it is crucial. But let's talk about the part where you said you didn't even feel like you should even be here. You should even exist. When did all this start to manifest itself?
Honestly, I would, as young as I can remember. And that's because my story, I didn't have two loving parents who came together and created a family. My mother was 17 and was raped at a party in her basement. And that was how I was created. And I come from a very open family. They never hid that from me my entire life. I knew that my dad didn't want me and that I was a mistake. And when you have that mindset your entire life, you're just constantly trying to prove that you belong on this earth, that you belong in relationships, you should have friends, and your entire life is just trying and just you just want people to see you, and you just want to prove that you do belong here. And it took me, I would say, until my mid-30s to finally come to terms with that I do belong here, that I am a miracle. My mom decided to keep me for a reason, and I'm here, and I am doing everything I can to make a difference, a positive difference in this world. And I want to impact others who have these same feelings, who came from nothing or who feel like they're a mistake, and let them know you are not. If you are here on this earth, you are not a mistake.
When did your mom or your family decide to let you know what had happened to you, that you was a product of a rape situation? Mm-hmm. Like, what age were you when that was revealed?
I would say elementary school. I was very, very young. Not that I understood really what that meant, but right. I was told the story that when I was born, the man who my mom, because she knew him, And she told him, "You are this child's father." I was always told he came into the hospital room, took one look at me and said, "That's not mine," and walked out. And that has been my forever story. Now, at that time when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, that was the extent of it. It wasn't until I would say probably like 10, 11, 12, when you start learning about the birds and the bees, that I was introduced that it was more violent than I initially knew.
When did it really become? Well, I'm pretty sure all of it was a struggle, but at that age,
Yeah.
like you said, you don't know what it means. You're not going to pick up the Webster's dictionary and talk about it. But when other kids have their mom and their dad, these things do begin to show its ugly face because he's not there, but they told you this tragic story. How did you start to evolve from that? To go talk to your parents and say, you know what, this is really becoming a struggle for me.
So I actually kept it to myself. I didn't share it in high school. I didn't share it with any of my friends because I was legally adopted by who I do call my dad when I was 6. My mom did marry, and I called him my dad. And it's so funny because he's a little 5'3" Italian. My mom's 5'3", and I'm 5'10", blonde hair, blue eyes. And people are like, "How is that your dad?"
Yeah, right.
So we would just laugh about it and never actually tell the truth. So it wasn't until I got older that I was able to share that. But the way that affected me was I didn't let myself get close in relationships either. I didn't have close friends. I didn't go to people's homes. I was so infiltrated by the safety that my family gave me. And, they just always made me feel like our home, our people were it. No one else could ever understand me. And so my entire life, as a child, I just had a really hard time forming those friendships and trusting others.
That would seem like to me that would be a difficult path from junior high to high school to college, being put in that type of adaptation mindset that I'm pretty sure that I don't know. It's like to me it would handicap even developmental skills. Did that happen to you?
I actually had the adverse reaction. I worked really hard in school. Again, I always wanted to be the best, do the best, prove myself. So I was always top of the class. I was in the gifted programs. I was involved in school plays. I started working as soon as I turned 16, and I just always pushed myself really, really hard to prove to myself and to my family that I am somebody. But outside of my circle, I just didn't push myself.
How difficult was it for you to really have an open heart to heart with your mom about what had happened to her and the fear that, because I'm pretty sure your mom was afraid, and that fearness basically was inputted onto you with the safety net, figuring that this could happen to you. How much of her pain was released onto you that you had to move away as well? Because it's really your life now. Not saying that couldn't happen to you, but you're carrying around her pain. And part 2 to this question, did she ever get closure or help with that?
No, she didn't. And actually, her and I, we don't speak anymore. And it stems back to the fact that I actually met my biological father about 15 years ago. And when I told her that I found him and I met with him, our relationship instantly changed. I don't think that in my mind, I realized the hurt it would cause her just because I had so many questions. I needed to know who this person was, where I came from, his family, his health history. Like, I needed that for me, but I never took her feelings into consideration, that this would be opening up this wound that has been healed for over 30 years, and so I think that was started the downfall of our relationship. But prior to that, in school, I had very early curfews. I was, I had a boyfriend in high school and I had to be home. I was a senior. I was 18 years old and still had to be home by 11 p.m. And so we had some hostility in high school as well, that I did move out. I moved out and lived on my own the week after I graduated high school, just because I needed some freedom. And you actually just made me realize that could be why she was so hard on me growing up, was because she didn't want that to happen to me. And I never thought about that before.
Let's go back a little bit. And I'm sorry for the fact that you and your mom have lost that level of communication. But with that taken in mind, I know you've probably done some deep searching here.
Yes.
What is her mindset now? Because you've opened Pandora's box that have been a secret. Here's a dude. Here's a man that walked in. I always tell people there's two sides to every story. There's two sides. There's the perpetrator and there's the person that the act of the violence has been put on. I'm not condoning it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but there's still two sides to every story. You heard your family side for so many years, all the way up to probably past your 18s in college. And now here's a dude that makes perfect sense. You know, you have your own life. You need to know who this person is for even health reasons. What was the first part of this question is, how did you find him? What, because they had to leave breadcrumbs. So the door wasn't completely closed in your family. Somebody knew a way to get in contact with this individual.
Yeah, so my mom knew that I always had a yearning just to know who my father was. So she was able to find his senior photo, and I had a little clipping. That's it, just his senior photo with his first and last name. That's all I had my whole life. And so when Facebook came out, I started searching his last name. I knew the city he came from. And I found a girl who was a lot younger than me. And I reached out to her and I just said, hey, is this your father? And she said, yes, it is. Why? How do you know him? And I said, well, I think I might be your sister. And it snowballed from there.
Facebook is crazy, ain't it?
It is. It really is. Yeah, but I got to meet him. We met at Panera. We sat down for probably 3 hours. And like you said, there are definitely two sides to every story. His side was that absolutely, yes, we did hook up. That happened, but it was mutual. We were drinking. It was a party. There was nothing terrible. And he did come to the hospital and he saw me, but he said my mom was with multiple other men. So yeah, he was in denial. And there was never a question of a DNA test or anything like that. But when I finally got to meet him and hear that side, yes, I'm still a mistake. Yes, I still shouldn't be here. But at the same time, it was almost like I could breathe, like that weight was off my shoulders a little bit. Like maybe it wasn't as bad as they made it sound.
Why didn't he reach out? Because that would have been a question I would have asked. Why didn't you reach out?
I just think he was in denial all that time. And he started his own family. You know, a few years later, he got married, he had children. And I think, you know, in the back of his mind, I wasn't his. So I don't know that he had a reason to really reach out because he was in denial. But after he saw me, he said, there's no denying it because I look just like him.
Like you walk in and see him and you see you guys look just alike. What was the first question that you asked?
Goodness, there was just so many questions. And I think I said that to him. I said, I have thought about this moment my entire life, 30 years. I have waited for this moment. And my mind was blank. I just looked at him, you know, and just took it all in and looked at his nose and his teeth and his eyes and was like, wow, this person that I've dreamt of my entire life is sitting here in front of me and I'm half of him. I mean, it was just so surreal. It was so surreal. But honestly, the whole conversation is such a blur.
What was his emotion? Did he cry? Did he, you know, like...
He did.
Really?
He cried. He told me not necessarily that he had regret, but he felt sad for me. He felt sad that I had to live my whole life without him as my father. He had a lot of just sadness for me, I think, that he wasn't there.
Did he ask about your mom?
I don't think so. There's no lost love there.
So let's move back a minute.
Sure.
There's a disconnect, unfortunately, between you and your mom because we all have to live and come to grips with our pain, and we have to figure out our individual courses on how we get out of it. Evidently, your mom haven't got out of it. Your mom created the story that took place. He created the story that took place. Now it's up to you to decipher the two. But the bottom line is your mom raised you. Your new stepdad adopted you. Have you ever really put yourself, now that all this happened, in her shoes for a moment to understand that what happened is her story, and it may not ever change. But you opened up Pandora's box for her that she never wanted to be open. Whether she probably said, "Well, now you know. Now, whose side are you gonna believe? How are you gonna deal with this moving forward with your mom? I know you don't want that relationship to just filter. You already missed out on your biological father. Now you're about to lose out on your mom because of something that happened when they were both young
17.
individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a shame. I mean, as we all got older, there were other instances that I saw in my mom that I didn't necessarily agree with. A lot of narcissistic behavior, and I don't want to throw her under the bus too much, but she's in California. She's living her life now, but she's completely alienated from the entire family, with the exception of my one sister.
How was that relationship with your one sister? Does she understand what happened with you and the newfound your father and so forth? How is she? Because that's really maybe your only link to helping bridge the gap. What's that relationship like with you and your sister?
We're pretty close. She also lives in South Carolina, so we're not physically close, but we have a decent relationship. She still talks to my mom. She still talks to me, but when we talk, I don't talk about my mom. So, we're pretty close. And we look at each other as sisters. She's only a half sister. She's my adopted dad's daughter. So we're half siblings, but we look at each other as full siblings.
How close are you and your father now? I mean, you guys still have a close relationship now? The guy that you just met, your biological father.
I tried really hard to maintain a relationship. He would visit Pennsylvania every Christmas, and we would try to connect, and it just didn't really stick. We just never bonded. We tried, but it just wasn't there. So I'm at peace. I did get to know him. I follow my half siblings on his side through social media, so I still get to see them. But he and I don't have a relationship either.
Now, have you? I'm pretty sure you said he's moved on and married and so forth, but have you shared your journey with your father with them on the story that everything that happened to you, or have they asked, or you just decided to just allow it to just not even enter into his new family structure?
Yeah, I didn't. I met two of the girls. I met his new wife, and I didn't get into any kind of detail. I don't know what he told them. I don't know what the story was, but I didn't feel like it was in my place, so that I didn't share any of that with them.
Let's move forward a little bit. You wind up becoming an entrepreneur with charcuterie boards.
Yes.
No culinary art school, nothing of that sort. What were you doing prior? Let's just go back a minute. What were you doing prior to coming into the entrepreneur part of doing charcuterie boards? What's your occupation?
I'm a side hustler. I'm a side hustler. I want to make money. And so I've always, whether I had a full-time job or part-time job, I've had 3 jobs. I've always tried to create something. I had a mascot business, a face painting business. I do whatever I can to make money. But when I came up with the charcuterie business, that was actually out of desperation. I was in a job that I was epically failing at. The only job I've ever had, I knew I was failing at. And I had to figure something out before I was let go. And it was the new year, January 6th or 7th, and I was sitting on the sofa with my husband, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to figure something out. And he's like, well, we just made that charcuterie board at the holidays. What about something like that? And this was during COVID. And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. So that night, Facebook page, Instagram, website, everything was set up and ready to go. And I ran with it. And I watched YouTube videos. I taught myself, and it just kind of blew up from there.
So let's go back a little bit. You have now talked to your biological father. He's now started his own family. You met at least one of the siblings. Now you have to ask yourself this question. Based on what you've known all your life, do you share that information with them, or do you keep it and go to the grave with it?
I decided not to share that with them. I didn't think it was in my place, and they knew I existed now, so I felt like it was up to him to share his story with his children. And I don't want anyone to be the bad guy because I wasn't there. I don't know. So I did not share any of that with them.
Now, let's go back a minute. We talked about your mom's story. It's two versions here. You have to decide which one is which. You're trying to rekindle a relationship with your mom because your mom has clearly gotten upset that naturally you're going to find out another side of the stuff and has crippled you guys' relationship. You're cool with your sister. What's it like with you and your mom now? How do you bond that? Your mom has moved to you said California, right?
California.
How do you bond that? Because this is a woman that clearly raised you. I get it. I get it. Trust me. Trauma is crazy. And nobody knows except for them to exactly what took place in there. Your mom wanted you to believe her. Your dad said, this is my version. Your mom's pissed and moved on. How do you bridge that?
Oh, I'll let you know when I figure it out because I have not been able to at all. The older I get, the more life experiences I have, I understand her better and where she's coming from. But it has been so long at this point, I don't know when I'll be able to comfortably reach out and work on building that relationship again.
What do you regret the most out of this part of your journey? The fact that you've opened the Pandora box and you've now understand another side of it, but at the same time, there's a disconnect with your mom. You now have new siblings. I don't know what that's like. I'm pretty sure you probably bond some type of, and that's a good question. This is a two-part story.
Okay.
What's that like? What do you regret most between that two? Let's start with your mom and your dad. What's the regret here? That you open up the box and now you hear her side of the story. Now you got to choose side. What do you regret out of opening that box?
So I'm glad I did. I'm glad that I reached out to him and heard his side of the story and got to know him. But if I could go back and do it again, I think that I would keep that my personal secret. I would not bring that up to my mom, let her know his side, let her know we talked. I never put myself in her shoes and the hurt that it could cause. And in retrospect, I think that was probably the biggest mistake of the whole thing.
You now have other brothers and sisters, and I'm speaking from experience now, because I've seen this with my own father, who's happily married, and she has her own children. I mean, we're all the same ages, And my dad wants, everybody wants that bond, that chemistry. That you're 3 years old, and you'd be like, dude, it don't work like that. You know what I mean? Right. It don't work like that. But these are your. Is it half brothers and sisters?
Half. Mm-hmm.
What's that like? Do you bond a relationship? Do they want to bond a relationship with you? Because you still got to keep in the closet. What happened? Right. You don't want to throw a firecracker in there and they really hate you. So how do you keep that?
Yeah, well, with his children, he actually has 4. He has 2 from his first wife and 2 from his second wife. I met the younger 2. I never met the older 2. And they were sweet. We talked a little bit, and I do follow them on social media, but I never developed a relationship. I do social stalk them, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad because I see him in pictures and at their birthdays and at his grandchildren's birthdays and at the weddings, and it hurts me that his other 4 children are experiencing this amazing, happy life with their father. And, I'm not part of that. That makes me very sad. And I don't have a relationship with any of them. And then on my side, where my dad who adopted me, I also have 2 half siblings, and our family dynamic is so crazy. And my sister is the only person that I have a relationship with. She does know the story, but we just don't really talk about it. We don't let that affect our relationship. And I think we interact like just most regular siblings would.
You mentioned something that it hurts to go back and look.
Yeah.
Who do you put the blame on? You can't be human and ask yourself. You can ask yourself, how did I get like this? But it's only human nature to say, who do I point the finger at here? This could have been my life. Do you blame both of them for being young and adolescent? Do you blame the people that kept the secret? Because your mom, part of your family knew this. Who do you blame for all this?
I think it would go back to my father. At any point in time, he could have just said, let's find out, let's figure it out, let me try. My mom decided to keep me. And so I feel like she did her part the best she could. Mm-hmm. And my family rallied, my grandparents are like my parents. They supported me through everything. So I would say I do blame him for not stepping up, for not trying, and for just moving on with his life and creating a new family.
But I'm pretty sure you shared all of that with him, correct? Yes. And what did he say?
Yeah. I think that's when he started to tear up. He realized the pain that he caused the life that he created. And, it's hard to see a man cry. It's very, very hard. And to see him sit across me in Panera with tears in his eyes with, I guess, regret. It was hard to watch, but at the same time, it kind of felt good. Like you got a taste of it. You don't have a taste of what's going through me. So yeah, a little bittersweet, I guess.
But you guys now have a somewhat of a relationship, I take it.
My father?
Yeah.
No, we don't have a relationship. It just kind of fizzled out.
How does that make you feel that it fizzled out after you've done all of this research, all of this trial and tribulation, and now your mom is bitter? I mean, what's that like now?
It hurts because I have 3 children. And now they have this grandfather that they'll never know. They have these aunts and uncles that they'll never know. And so that makes me sad too. It's not even just about me anymore. It's about this family that I've created. And it's so hard when I have my biological mother and father who I don't speak to. And my closest parent is the man who adopted me when I was 6 years old. He's the only one that's still in my life. Like my parents are non-existent. And I feel bad for myself. I have a lot of self-pity. That I try to look past, but now it's starting to trickle down more into my kids and then my kids' kids. Like this is just going to be that never-ending cycle of we never knew this person that all of our lives came from. So that's really hard.
Do you ever ask yourself that maybe the universe put it there for a reason, and what is the bigger picture here for you?
I am a huge believer in everything for a reason. The universe. It all happens the way it's supposed to. And I would not be the person that I am today if I didn't go through that story. If I didn't live that life. The first half of my life was I don't know if I can swear. The first half of my life was a bitch. Yeah. And it took me until my 30s to get my act together, to start acting like an adult, to start realizing like, you're wasting your life. What are you doing? And now I'm on this trajectory that is insane. And I wouldn't be living this life if I didn't live that life.
What do you mean when you were saying you was acting reckless or not doing what you're supposed to do? What is a mess?
I was a mess.
You don't have to give us all the details, but what was a mess?
So like I said, I moved out the week after I graduated high school. I lived with a drug dealer. It was a really bad situation. As soon as I turned 21, I got married, got pregnant, started a family. I had nothing. I was working as a waitress. I was trying to be a model. I was working as a teacher's aide. I was a mascot. Like I was just all over the place. And I brought 2 kids into the world in my early 20s with zero plan, on food stamps, on WIC, standing in line at the food bank, just trying to just get by. I was like a child playing house. That was what it was like. And again, it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I found that I'm remarried, and he is the person that completely changed my life, helped me figure my mind out, and just really put me on a path that where I'm living my best possible life.
What did he do when you say put you on a path? Explain that a little bit without going too deep.
Yeah, he's just an amazing man. He is 7 years older than me, which is what I think I need. I'm kind of an out there person. I'm the same person here that I am at work, that I am with my friends. I'm always the same person. And that person's a little out of control sometimes. I don't have a filter. I'm loud. I'm the one that's going to do the dare or anything stupid. That's just me. And I needed someone to ground me a little bit. And so he has that grounding presence where I bring out the fun in him. He keeps me grounded. And together we found God and we started going to church together. And we've now been together for 10 years and just have this amazing life together. And we're just so blessed.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, let's go to a lighter side.
Okay.
Speaker, and more importantly, an entrepreneur. Serious entrepreneurship. Never been to culinary arts school,
No.
and now have a successful business making charcuterie boards. How did all that come about?
So I was one of my side hustle jobs that I was trying to make work. I was failing at, and I knew I was failing at it. And I was in a do or die situation. It was the new year. It was COVID. And I was sitting on the sofa and I looked at my husband and I said, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need money. What are we going to do? And we had just hosted a party over the holidays. And he said, how about like charcuterie? You know, we put that board together. Everybody loved it. And I said, yeah, maybe we could do that. And just did a little bit of research, seeing what was around. That night, I had my Facebook page, my Instagram, my website, and I was up and running. Wow. Never made a charcuterie board outside of what he and I did for the holidays, threw some stuff together. And self-taught myself on YouTube, and it blew up from there.
How long have you been doing it now? How long has the new business been running?
3.5 years.
That's crazy.
It is. It really is.
Okay, so how did you know what to put on the charcuterie board? Only time I see charcuterie boards is, like you said, during holidays. I think my first exposure to knowing what it was my nephew always hosts Thanksgiving, and Roger always brings a charcuterie board. And I was like, man, what is that? And it has like all the different things. It's kind of cool. So how do you know how to really? Well, let me go back.
Sure.
What was the toughest part on doing a charcuterie board to make it successful? Because there's tons of places that have charcuterie boards, or you can design one. But what makes yours different? What was the toughest part to get the recognition to be successful for 3 years?
So the hardest part in the beginning for me was learning the artistry of it. Because you think you just throw some meat, some cheese, and crackers, and you have a board, but it's not like that. You know, there's different shapes, there's different places that you put everything. And I had put so much pressure on myself. I'd look at a picture and I'd try to recreate it, and it never looked like that. Right. And I would get so angry. And through the process of teaching myself, I actually created a course now where I teach how to make charcuterie boards. I've created the ABC of charcuterie. You know, I've created this whole concept as to how to do it. Right. But as far as gaining traction in the beginning, I'm very integrated in our community. And so I would post on Facebook community pages, just do community outreach. I went to local businesses with little boxes and said, hey, you know, we're a brand new business in the area. We'd love if you could buy a box in the future. And it was just really community outreach, grassroots marketing that got us where we are.
That sounds so cool, because you had to completely believe in this and you knew nothing about it, and you just took off like a thoroughbred and got the movement.
The very first board I made that I got hired for, I cried. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt so guilty because someone was paying me $115 for this board.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing. It was a mess. And now I whip them together like nothing.
With that said, you look back on your life, it's still filled with a little bit of pain, I can see.
Yeah.
Because, but the bigger side of the story is the answers, whether they be true or false, have been given to you. It's up to you to determine if you're going to let it affect you, cripple you, or allow you to be stronger and move forward. You definitely are now a public speaker. You've been in business for 3 years. You met a beautiful husband. You guys have found your spiritual connection. You have your children. Such a journey. What do you leave the viewers with from this story?
All I can tell you is whatever you've been through, wherever you're at now, it will get better. Trust in yourself. Believe that you belong here. people love you. You're making a difference. And, just take every day as you can, because you only have one life, right? Don't live in the past. Don't look in the past. Look at how far you've come already and how far you can go, because you got this.
How can the viewers reach out to you to know more about your charcuterie boards, public speaking, the whole 9 yards?
So our website is 73charcuterieco.com. 73 is my favorite number. That's where that came from. My TikTok handle is everydayoof, OOF, because I'm a goofball and I like to make fun of myself.
Okay.
I have another TikTok page called Restaurant Girl Sultant, which is about the restaurant industry and how to be more successful in restaurants. That's about it. The charcuterie business and TikTok.
We're going to have you come back and talk about how to be successful in the restaurant business. I would
love that.
I think that's a good topic. We're going to have you come back and we're going to talk about that. You know what? Thank you so much for taking time, Erika, to come on the show and share such a beautiful story. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow her. All it takes is a click of a button to make a friend or to learn some new information. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.